2024 model isn't any better than the 2022 or 2023 bike. It's the same model, only with a $100 upcharge, bringing the MSRP to $8,299. We were mildly surprised when we found out that Honda wasn't updating its CRF250. For 2023, the CRF450 received a list of small changes that primarily focused on the 450 4-strokes power delivery, but it also gained some frame mods and suspension setting changes. Of course, the 250 and 450 engines are completely unique and have different needs. So we didn't expect the longer air intake boot, smaller intake valves, or smaller Keihin throttle body of the CRF450 to end up on the CRF250. In fact, Honda was trying to slow down and mellow out the CRF450 by reducing airflow into the combustion chamber. On the CRF250, they still wanted all the power and hit they could get. Dyno numbers don't always reflect how you feel when riding a bike, but they do visually display the power curve so you can objectively compare the numbers to those of other bikes. When the CRF250 was all new in 2022, our testers loved the power. It had a Yamaha YZ 250F style of grunt that came on with authority, making it easy to get up and go. To our surprise, it was actually slower on the dyno than the 2021 CRF 250, which had power that we likened to that of a 125 two-stroke. The 2024 Honda CRF 250 reaches 4079 peak horsepower at 11,830 revolutions per minute, with a peak torque number of 1977 pound-feet. Honda set out to copy the Yamaha YZ 250F powerband when they introduced the 2022 engine, and they accomplished that task. The CRF 250 muffler even mimics the sound of a stock YZ 250F, which is not a good thing. The CRF 250 engine comes on strong with added torque that feels faster than it is. At the crack of the throttle, the 2024 CRF 250 is the most exciting and responsive bike on the track. The CRF 250 isn't as fast as the KTM, Husqvarna, GasGas, or Kawasaki 250 4-strokes, but it feels faster because of the excitement it delivers on corner exits. The SX, KX, MC, and FC don't pop as hard initially, and they thrust out of turns with a smoother pull that feels less exciting, even though it is still faster. If you own a Honda CRF 250 and you're happy with the engine, just make sure you never try an Austrian bike or a Kawasaki. The Honda CRF 250 hasn't changed since 2022 when it was tied with the Husqvarna for the third lightest bike in the class. Now suddenly it's the lightest 250 4-stroke on the market. The 2024 Honda CRF 250 weighs 219 pounds. We weigh our bikes wet with standard coolant and oil levels, but without fuel in the tank, the CRF 250 has lost a lot of weight since the 227-pound 2021 CRF 250. The Honda CRF 250 suspension is tailor-made for pro-level riders to use on technical and tacky tracks. The forks need traction and hard front brake pressure to actually work. If you're riding Supercross, you'll be off to a good start with the stock Showa forks. In the real world on a real track, the front deflects off the bumps and pushes the front wheel coming into corners. It's hard to imagine Honda continuing to press copy-paste on these very stiff CRF 250 forks. But this is the third year in a row without a single change to the valving inside these forks. The shock isn't bad on the CRF 250, and we don't have many complaints with it when we set the sag to 105 mm. Usually when the forks are ultra stiff like they also are on the 2024 Kawasaki KX 250, you can raise the sag on the shock to 100 mm, or raise the forks up in the triple clamps to put some more weight on the front end and help find some front wheel traction. However, on the Honda chassis, this is the danger zone. With its twitchy front-end characteristics, you have to be careful weighting the front of this bike. We've even seen factory HRC Honda riders like Jet and Hunter Lawrence run steering stabilizers on their CRF 250 both indoors and out, which is not very common in the 250 class. Not so well. As mentioned above, the Showa spring forks are far too stiff, and the CRF 250 handling issues start there. We appreciate that the new generation Honda was made lighter, which helps with hopping over bumps and clearing jumps, but the rigid suspension and frame don't complement the weight loss. It actually makes our test riders miss the oh-so-user-friendly 2018 to 2021 chassis with its weak sister engine, plush suspension and balanced frame. We tried Ride Engineering's 23.5 offset triple clamps, and they changed the trail, lengthened the wheelbase and improved stability. The Ride Engineering clamps fit on both the CRF450 and CRF250. Because the 450 is much faster and more difficult to hold onto, the benefits of the offset clamps are more noticeable on that bike. Plus, if you're a light rider, you can buy the Honda HPSD steering damper and mount from Ride Engineering to help with head shake. We also mounted Pro Circuit's shock linkage on the chassis, creating a more linear rear shock motion that starts out plush and ramps up as you get further in the stroke. Pro Circuit works closely with Johnny Campbell's factory JCR Honda off-road team, and they helped develop this linkage to find stability and balance on the Hondas. Our opinion hasn't changed since this version of the CRF250 came out in 2022. The then all-new bike switched from an easy-to-use chassis and hard-to-use engine to an easy-to-use engine and hard-to-use chassis. We'd pick the latter option all day long because the 250 class is all about power. And even though this bike has less actual horsepower now than it did a couple of years ago, the power is more usable and feels much stronger on the track. As for our chassis complaints, they can be resolved with the help of a good suspension technician and a rider who isn't afraid to make changes regularly. Since Honda hasn't updated its CRF 250 one iota since the new generation bike was first introduced in 2022, we are hoping they have a bag of cash set aside to invest in 2025 Honda CRF 250 updates. The Honda dropped weight in 2022, and not a single thing has changed since then, but somehow it went from being tied for third lightest bike to being the lightest bike in 2024. How did that happen? The simple answer is that the Austrian trio gained weight. We like that you can change the maps easily on the handlebars and that they make a fairly noticeable difference on the track.